My name is Adrena and welcome to my Grace Life. So today I want to talk about something a little bit serious as we're getting to know one another. I mentioned in my intro video, if you haven't watched it, I'll link it below. But in my intro video, I mentioned some of the things that we would be talking about. And one of those things was the fact that I lost my only sister in 2024. And so I don't mean to take, like, we've been talking and it's been really energetic and really fun. And I'm so appreciative of every person who commented, who liked, who subscribed, who's joining me here on this journey while I share my 40 life, my grace life, this life that God has graced me for. And so let's talk about that first, and then we'll get into my sister. Today, as you can see right here is a picture of my sister. You probably can't see it up close. I'm not going to push it up any closer, but my only sister, her name was Brandy. She was older than my older sister, but we'll talk more about that. So why am I the Grace Life? Why is my channel called the Grace Life? It's called the Grace Life because God has graced us for this life. It's come from a place of complaint, to be totally honest and transparent. It came from a place of why me, why this, why that, so many things, or feelings of being overwhelmed, feelings of just feeling like, so much on my plate. Why do I have to deal with all this stuff? And, as I share with you all in in my previous videos, I am a Christian. I am a licensed minister, pastor's wife. And so in anything that I do, God is going to be involved in some way or another. And so, out of my complaints, I realized and I was reminded that God's grace is sufficient. And so I'm not going to pull up the scripture or anything like that on y'all, but I will say in Apostle Paul's writings to the church at Corinth, he's explaining to them that God had put a thorn in his flesh, and he asked God to relieve him of that thorn 3 times. And at the 3rd time, God told him, my grace is sufficient for you. And then Paul's response was, therefore, I gladly boast in my weakness, that the power of God will rest on me. For when I'm weak, God is strong. Like, that's the gist of it. I may have not said it exactly. I might have fumbled it a little bit. But the gist of it is, his grace is sufficient. And so if we rely on God's grace, his grace is what allows us to stand and endure through difficult seasons of our life, or do difficult things, or the things that we're responsible. Like, I'm graced for this. Like, God has given me favor that I can handle all of these things, right? That's what grace is. Mercy is when you ask God to get you out of a situation, but grace is basically the strength to endure, to handle, to manage, to steward, to do all the things so that you can handle the things that God has entrusted into your care, right? And so I'm not going to get super preachy on you, but that's what the Grace Life is about. It's like, I realized, like, yes, I have a lot on my plate. Yes, I'm parenting a 23-year-old son who's transitioning from college to adulthood and independency. And so this parenting that I have to do on that end. And then I have a 21-month-year-old who I'm trying to get to lay down for nap time, right? I have a husband. We have a great relationship. We've been married for 13 years. We have a ministry where I serve. We have, I forgot to mention this in my earlier video, but we're now caretakers. We moved my grandmother from Virginia to Georgia to live with us so we can take care of her. She's 86. And so I have my grandmother here in our home. We have dogs. My husband is one of 8 children. I have nieces, nephews. I have brothers, parents. Both of my grandmothers are still living. So I have a lot of responsibilities in my life, and nothing that I'm necessarily complaining about, but I'm complaining when it's time to do dishes, and I'm complaining when it's time to clean the house, right? And so I'm just like, God, I'm tired. And I work a 9 to 5, and I have other passion projects, and I like to write. I raise money. I'm a philanthropist. Like, I have so many things, and I started complaining, and then I realized, like, God has graced me for this, and I have no reason to complain, and God has trusted me with all the things that I have in my life. And so instead of complaining, I have embraced it And now I just call it my grace life. Like, I'm living a grace life. Everything in my life, God has graced me for it. No matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like or how hard it is, God has graced me for it. And so since he has trusted me with it, I have to be a good steward. But also in my weakness, I can depend on him to make me strong. And to help me to handle, manage, and do all the things that he has given me to do. And so it's a blessing. It's not, it's a lot of things that I have and what God has blessed us, me and my family with, are things that other people have prayed for. And truthfully, I prayed for and hoped for and wished for and wanted. And now that I have it, you can't have both. You pray hard that you want something, and then when it comes, you pray hard because you're like, it's too much. And it's like, okay, well, you can't have, you can only have it one way. You either want it or you don't, or so you have to make that decision. And so I've decided I am graced for this. This is the great life. I'm going to live it. I'm going to enjoy it. I am going to embrace it, and I'm going to trust God that he has given me what I need to live it out. So that's why we are called the grace life. Now, let's talk about my sister. My sister's name is Brandy. She was 6 years older than me. I'm 44, and she would have turned 50 this year. And I remember, so my sister has 3 boys. Her youngest son passed away 2 years before she did. And I remember going home for the funeral, went to Rhode Island. My sister still lived in Rhode Island. Went to Rhode Island for the funeral, and my sister turned and asked me, she said, Adriana, do you think God meant to take him at this age? Like, do you think when I had him, God knew that he would take him now? And I do. If I believe that God knows all things, he sees all things, he understands all things, he knows our life from the end to the beginning, he has designed and orchestrated our life, and he's all-knowing, I have to believe, that he also knew that at that point in life, he would take her son, her baby. And it was such a difficult question to answer. And just to put in context, my sister and I were very close growing up, have always been close, grew up in the same household for the most part. And I'll get more into my life story a little bit later when we have time. But I just, I don't know, I just felt like it was the thing I needed to share. Like, I just wanted to share. And so, while she's my older sister, I've always kind of been the big sister in a way in our relationship in some aspects. I've always been very much like, you need to do this and you need to do that, and this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And, I was just, I have always been that way. And so in a lot of ways, I was like a bigger sister, the big sister. And so when she asked me that, of course, like I said, I told her, yeah, I believe that God did know, and he knows when he's going to take us. What I wasn't, and I remember after that, I was sharing a Facebook video. I was doing a Facebook Live, and I was telling them, like, I was talking about how to, accepting what God has allowed. And I wasn't saying it like to be careless or anything, but more so from the standpoint of, like, we have to trust God and learn to accept what he has allowed in our lives. And that's hard to do. It's not an easy feat in any kind of way. It's not to be taken lightly. But at some point we do need to accept what he has allowed in our lives. And it's harder when you can't accept it. You struggle when you can't accept it. And I don't think you ever get to a place where you get over the difficult things that happen in your life that God has allowed. I'm not saying that in any kind of way, but I do think that in order to move forward in your life, you have to come to a place of accepting what has happened, accepting what God has allowed. And so I'm a firm believer that by accepting it is not just a magic pill. You don't just wake up and decide that. I think it's a matter of prayer. I think it's therapy. I think it's fasting if you believe in fasting, but the power of fasting like I do. I believe it's prayer. I believe it's fasting. I believe it's therapy, getting on someone's couch, calling someone up, having those conversations, working through the difficult seasons. I believe it's the crying, it's the journaling, it's the screaming and hollering, it's all those things, right? But even in that, in me processing, like, my nephew passing, and literally 9 months to the day older than my son, and just, completely shocked by it. 2 years later, my sister was gone. And I think at that point, that idea of accepting what God has allowed was truly tested in my own life, right? It was truly tested in an even more personal way, because I couldn't understand it. I've never lost a child, so I didn't understand it from that standpoint. It was hard to lose a nephew, yes, absolutely. And it's hard to see my sister and my other nephews hurt, and their father hurt. It was hard. Losing my sister brought that pain to a deeper level. And I had to, for lack of a better word, eat those words that I had said about accepting what God has allowed. And it brought up a lot of issues when my sister passed away. Like I was pregnant after going through IVF, after, having surgery and doing all these things to get pregnant. My sister's gone. Thankfully, I had just told her like a few weeks earlier about the pregnancy and sent her a video of my belly and all the things. But it was so much pain when my sister passed away. It brought up a lot of pain for our dad. It brought up a lot of pain for our mother, our siblings, my brothers, my nephews. Again, my sister has 3 boys. 2 years prior, her baby had passed away. And then she has a middle son, and then her oldest son is in prison. And he's been in prison for a while. He wasn't able to come to his brother's funeral, and now his mom's passed. So like my first thought of mine, even while being pregnant, was like, I gotta get to my nephews. Like, I just need to go see them. I need them to know they are not by themselves, and these are my sister's kids, and I'm gonna be there. So I flew to Rhode Island. My best friend bought me a ticket, flew to Rhode Island to go be with them, pack up my sister's house, do all the things, and then go visit my oldest nephew in prison, talk to him, hug on him, just see his face and make sure he was okay. But it's grief. So many things came up when my sister passed away, and so much of that I'm going to share with you all, I promise. But, I'm just thinking, like, this month is on the 21st, she would have been 50. And, there's just moments where I'm just kind of like, I wish I could call her. Obviously she never met my daughter. My sister was very, very active in my son's life and helped me. I was a single mom when I had my son. My son's father was in federal prison, went to federal prison when my son was 5 months old. So I raised him primarily by myself until I moved here and met my husband. So my sister was a big help for me. She used to keep him while I worked. He loved going to her house, of course. He had 3 cousins over there, boys at that. But my sister wanted a daughter so bad, and she would have been obsessed with my baby, like obsessed with her. And so, it's like we all have moments in our life, whether it's like the passing of a sibling or a parent or grandparent or, a loss of so many things, where in order for us to live and embrace and enjoy the blessings of today, we have to accept what God allows. And the best example I have of this, and again, I'm a church girl. I can't help it. I'm a church girl. The best example I have of this is David. David in the Bible. Many of you may know, whether you go to church or not, you may have heard this at some point about David and Bathsheba and how he lusted after her and how he slept with her. She was a married woman. He slept with her, and then she got pregnant, and he had her husband killed, and all this drama, right? David, all this drama. And David, once David was found out by the prophet basically tells him that the baby's not going to live, that she's pregnant with, it's not going to live. And so David, once the baby's born and everything, he's praying, he's fasting, he's pleading to God to ask him to not let the baby die. And ultimately the baby dies. And when the baby dies, nobody wants to tell David. And so his servants are whispering about it, and David notices, and he turns to them and he's like, basically, how's the baby? And they're like, the baby has died. And what does he do? He washes his face. I believe it said he worshiped, and then he ate. And they were so confused by it. Like, okay, you just been praying, crying, screaming out to God, putting, ashes on your head, fasting, pleading to God to save your baby. Your baby has died, and now you just got up and you wash your face and you put on your kingly clothes back on and you worshiped and you are eating a meal after days of you not eating and all the things. And he's like, at this point, not that he didn't care, but more so like he accepted that God had made his decision. And I think when you're thinking about your faith and your journey of faith, it's not like these moments are easy, but it's more so about like knowing like, okay, this is something that was in God's hands. God has made his decision, but also if I trust him like I say I do, then I have to accept that his will was right and better. That has been a hard pill for me to swallow. That's one of the things I struggled the most with when it came to my sister's passing, is I didn't understand why. It brought up issues that I have with my mother, and we'll get into that because that right there is going to be a talk. It brought up issues I had with my mother. I was very angry. I was so overwhelmed with the fact that my sister passed away and my nephew's mom is gone and their brother's gone and one's in prison and the other's out here with everyone he grew up with is gone in some kind of way. When we went back home to have my sister's memorial, like I literally forgot I was pregnant. I remember being at my brother's house and I kept telling my husband, my stomach hurts. Like my stomach is hurting, forgetting I was pregnant. Like that's how my mind was so gone with this grief that it was like, girl, you're pregnant. That's why your stomach hurts. You're pregnant because you probably need to eat. You're pregnant because your baby feels the intensity of the grief that you're going through. And I remember once we had the memorial, I went back to therapy. I'm a huge advocate of therapy. Went back to therapy. Therapist was like, we can talk about your sister's passing, but we can't get really deep into all of this with your mom and everything because your baby feels it as strongly as you, if not more so. And so she was like, we can't touch on all of this and you're pregnant. We'll touch on some of it just to kind of relieve some of that stress, but we have to focus. The bulk of this is going to have to be done after you have her. And so that's literally what we had to do. And so, I don't want to get off on a tangent on this thing and go on, but, I was just thinking about my sister and I was just like, it was such a big thing. And my sister was kind and she was sweet and she had a temper on her at moments, but she really didn't do people no harm. Like she really didn't hurt nobody. She wasn't someone who's just out here acting crazy, being rude to people, snappy. I mean, she was sweet as can be. She loved her boys. She loved her family. She was strong in ways that I would never understand or did not understand or appreciate when she was here. And I have some regrets. I have some regrets about our relationship after I moved to Georgia. We weren't as close anymore. I didn't go home as often, like things like that. Then I'm like, I wish I could get some of that time back. But at the end of the day, I thank God that I'm in the place that I am today, which is accepting what God has allowed. And some good things happened. Really big good things happened after my sister's passing. And it's not, and I don't say it like I'm celebrating her passing. I'm saying like I feel like she left us gifts, me, her children, my siblings. She left us gifts that after her passing that I'm like, if she hadn't passed, would this have happened? And I don't know, but I thank God for where we all are today is different than we were, before. And that wasn't an easy place to get to in any kind of way, but things are much better. And by gifts, and I'll just share this one, the one that's most dear to me is when my nephew got in trouble, he went on the run. He disappeared for like a year and a half, and no one knew where he was. And when he did reach out, he was asking for money, and we were like, turn yourself in, because he got himself in a big mess. And because we're like, you being on the run is not going to help, like you need to turn yourself in, because you can't live like this, right? And so he was very upset with us. And so when they did catch him, he never turned himself in. He was caught. When he was caught, we didn't hear from him. We didn't. When I found out my sister passed, I was like, I ain't seen this kid in forever long, but I don't care. I'm going to see him at the prison. So I went home and I helped my one nephew clean up the apartments. We spent the whole day with him, and then that night they had a visit, and I went up to that prison, and I was pregnant, and I hadn't seen him in Lord knows how long. Maybe, I think it was like 7 to 10 years I had not seen him. And this my baby, like truly my baby. My sister had him when I was 13. So I was so happy to be an auntie. He was the first nephew in the family. So we catered to him. Like we would have him all the time. We could not wait to babysit him. And so I went and saw him, and to the point, and when I say I had not seen him in 7 to 10 years, when he came in to the visiting room, and they had to point out where I was. So he comes over to the table, and I promise he probably gets like maybe 3 feet from me, and I see his eyes well up with tears. And the first thing he says to me is like, Auntie, oh my God, you came to see me. And as difficult as the circumstances were, that did something to my heart, and I don't want to get emotional about this, but it's so emotional. I said, not that day, but other days, months later, I told him, I'm like, I feel like your mom's greatest gift to us was this, us reconnecting. My nephew wasn't able to come to the funeral. We had her, she wanted to be cremated, but the day of this funeral, the memorial, the prison, I called the prison, I made sure we could come. They even agreed to give us extra time. But like, he got to see me again. He hadn't seen my son in 7 to 10 years. He never met my husband. He got to meet my husband. My oldest brother was able to see him. My dad, my stepmom, my baby brother, and none of us has seen him in like 7 to 10 years. My Nana, my grandmother that lives with me now, who's 86, she was 85 at the time, she hadn't seen him in 7 to 10 years, so she got to see him. Like the prison let us all go up and see him in like 30-minute increments. And they was like, if you need extra time, we're going to give it to you, because when someone's parent dies, we want the family to show up and support them. Otherwise, they'll end up getting in trouble, or, grief shows up when we're free, right? Grief shows up for us who are not in prison or not in that situation. So, of course, it shows up for him. It doesn't change because he's in a different place, but because he's there by himself, it makes it worse. But so they was like, no, we want you guys to come see them. And so they ultimately gave us extra time to make sure that we all got to see him. And I'm like, and we've all been in close contact with him ever since. Like I go up there, I make a point of going up there every April, because the 2 nephews that are still here, they both have birthdays in April. So I go up every April to spend their birthdays with them. And my brother who lives there, he gets to see him, his wife. We write, we call, we do all the things. So it's just a beautiful thing. But I feel like that's the gift that my sister left us, like that this brought us back together. And he told me, he was like, Auntie, I used to always think like, I hope I get to see them again. And he apologized, for being upset with us, and I apologized for not reaching out sooner. So it's been like a real reconciliation of our family, and now we're all supporting him through his process and his journey that he's going through. But it's a gift. It's a gift. It's been a gift. And, I hope that in some way what I'm sharing with you today helps you with any grief or loss that you've experienced. Get to a place where you can accept what God has allowed. And I pray that that's a healing, a place of healing, a place of comfort, and a place of trust in God. But, for me, as hard as it's been, it's truly worked out beautifully for us who are still here. And so, you know, I embrace it. I love hearing from my nephews. I call them all, I write them all, I write them, I check on them, I text them. He calls, we talk about everything from A to Z. When I go home and I'm home, I usually come home for about 3 days. I go see him every single day. Every single day I'm up there, and he's this year when we were up there, he's like, Auntie, every time he's like, I kept thinking to myself, what are we going to talk about? And as soon as you sit down, we just talk the whole time until we can't talk no more. And I'm like, I know we have so much in common, but also just, you know, just catching up, talking, shooting the breeze. Like, we like the same things. We talk about a lot, and my son gets to see him, and it's just a beautiful thing. And it's so much joy. I wish my sister was here. I wish that every single day. I miss her. There's certain food she likes to eat that I, you know, cook when I'm thinking about her. I drink from her coffee cup when I'm really missing her and thinking about her. My sister loved ladybugs. Me and my brother got a ladybug tattoo last year. And my daughter has ladybug everything pretty much, because I love honeybees. My sister loves ladybugs, so she always either has a honeybee or a ladybug. Life is still beautiful. Life is still beautiful. It's hard, it's difficult, it's not easy process, but life is still beautiful. And so I hope that encourages you in some way to pray to God, to ask him for help in healing. Get in therapy if you need it. You can do group therapy. I found my therapist through therapyforblackgirls.com. Usually I just go through my insurance, but this time I was like, I just very specifically want a Black woman. So I did therapyforblackgirls.com. I'll put the link in the description. But I just hope that this helps you. I just wanted to share a little bit more about me, about my life, you know, as we're still getting to know each other around here. And so with that said, I hope that something I said helped you today. Like, subscribe, let me know in the comments. I'll be hanging out there responding to you all. I hope that, you know, you share with me your life, some of the things that you've gone, if you've done therapy, if you've lost a loved one, put their name in the comments, and with a heart, just let me know who they are. But yeah, my sister Brandy was absolutely beautiful. When I say 90s fine, like, my sister was 90s fine. 90s fine, no makeup, just lip gloss, you know, some mascara, and call it a day, if that, you know, most times just lip gloss. But 90s fine, beautiful, loving, great, amazing big sister. And I miss her every day. And but life is still good. God has graced me for this, and he's graced you for it too. So I just want to remind you of that. Again, let me go before I keep going on and on. Like, comment, subscribe, join the fam, hang out with us as we talk and live out our beautiful, graced life. I'll see you guys next time.